On today's video, Kingdom 279 find themselves in a hard place in Lost Kingdom 36, as now they're not only facing the mighty Kingdom 399, but also they're about to take up 375, 273, and so much more. Their allies got locked in, but one, a B Kingdom that acted like a true A Kingdom. In this video, everything you need to know about the continuation of the story of this Lost Kingdom and how it came to be what it is. So sit back, smash a like on the video. Hey there YouTube, welcome back to Gekko Gaming. Today we continue our coverage of Lost Kingdom 36 as there's a lot to talk about. The Kingdom in Red are about to face 3 kingdoms. Purple are doing everything within their human power to try to help as much as they can. Slow down Orange, which they've been successful for this whole time. Try to help against Pink. But man, 279 is getting pinched and there was nothing they could do from the get-go. Before we start though, I'm a sponsored content creator by the Kingdom. If you enjoyed the content, consider dropping a like on this video. Listen, we're so close to 31,000 subscribers. I don't know if we can hit 35 by the end of the year. I would really love to see if we can. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing to the channel and of course smashing a like on this video again. I appreciate you all for all your continuous support. Let's get on with this video. A couple of things that need to be said about 279's allies before we begin. 406 in blue got overwhelmed by 299 in baby blue very early on. They did everything they could to try to flag around, to try to do anything, but just 299 were just too much for them to handle. How it happened, why it happened, what are the reasons is less of a relevant topic, but they did try to fight back. They did take away all of 299's territory and then lost that territory back. They did rally flag. They did do a lot of damage. We'll have a couple of reports showing momentarily of what they did. But at the end of the day, 406 were just not capable to help in this fight. 366 in yellow, just, I don't even know where they were most of the time. It took a little bit when Pink had the downtime. Yellow managed to push out a little bit. But in the early stages, it's 375 in Pink. Literally just dropped flag, burned yours. Dropped flag, burned yours. Dropped flag, burned yours. Yellow out the window. There was nothing stopping them. It was a little bit sad to see, but it did indeed happen. The 2 kingdoms that managed to really push out were Purple and Red. Purple managed to push back 273 in Orange. They took away the corner, which is a fantastic beginning. And they got to the point, because of the way they flagged, Orange had to go around them to try to get to Red, which gave Red time to try to do something. While doing that, Purple managed to block Orange and even go fight Pink with the help of the folks in Red, and so it ended up becoming sort of a 4v2, a 4v2 that got into a 2v2 just because of the way the flagging ended up turning out. But in this 2v2, you had an A team and a B team against what would be an A team, and I don't know if you could call them a B team because, man, it's like nastiness, and just straight up nastiness in these 2 kingdoms. 399 and 375 just went crazy. And both of them have players that I know personally. 375 are some of them are ex-Legends Gaming 1, aka RX from Kingdom 196 that I played with in the past. Shout out to Night King and company. And they're now in 375. And the folks of 399 obviously are ex-JWM members, among other things. You have here some reports of UA06 who did try to get some fighting going on. We have a few nasty reports by them to show you, but it wasn't really significant. They really didn't manage to get much progress. I want to talk about the subject of spending in Rise of Kingdoms for a moment, and I understand that for most of you it's like, well, duh, you spend $2,000 a day on Rise of Kingdoms, you'll be a strong player. That is true. You can spend $2,000 a day in Rise of Kingdoms and you'll have all the power and all the commanders and all that good stuff. But you will not be a good player. You will be a big player. You will be a stacked player, but that doesn't mean you understand the mechanics. It's very rare to find big players who actually spend their money in trying to get the best mechanics available, as well as get the best advantages out there, and not just get power and troop and commanders. Someone, for example, like Baba is a great example for that. When he started early on, he was a little bit more about the power and a little bit more about the commanders. And now I know by playing with him and seeing him in Osiris League and seeing the kinds of things that he does with his account, he's more diligent about the mechanics And it goes to show that he wanted to be that kind of player. He could easily be a 1 billion player who doesn't know anything about Rise of Kingdoms. He could easily be that. But the matter of the fact is, he knows a lot more than people think he does, just because his early endeavors seem to be a little bit less insightful. It doesn't mean he's still like that. The other way around. I'm super impressed with how much he continually looks to improve his knowledge in game mechanics. And that's the difference between a big player who's strong and a big player who's just big. There are a lot of big players, for example, who don't participate in Osiris League. Osiris League is a great example as to which players are trying to understand how mechanics work. Osiris League, you cannot just be a big player. You have to know how to play a certain role, understand the mechanics of that role, play in a coordinated manner with a team, be able to execute a strategy, be able to follow orders as well as give orders in case it's your role. And so, to me, anyone who plays Ark of Osiris at a competitive level has already taken that first step of understanding better how mechanics work. Why is this so important to this, and why am I rambling about it? Because in Kingdom 399, you have a stupendous amount of players who are not only massive spenders, but are also super savvy. I can tell you that Kingdom 399 was built off of a few groups of massive players who just made a coordinated migration, a couple of coordinated migrations to get that kingdom a ton of firepower. And we're not talking about people who max buy the shop every single day just to max buy the shop, but they buy things at a strategic manner. Now, there's one more thing we got to talk about when it comes to purchasing, and then we can get into the actual action here. A lot of packs tend to be very specific, but they come with a lot of junk, quote unquote. That junk is usually resources and speed ups, believe it or not. When you buy a New World bundle, you're buying it for the passport pages, but you're unfortunately, I mean, I'll take them, but the pack really dumps on you a bunch of resources and speed ups, which you're not buying this pack for. The same goes for Geared Up. You're buying it for the materials, and yet you get some resources and speed ups out of it too. Same goes for the Call of the Ancient, which that one is being bought for the training and healing speed ups primarily, as well as the army reserves. And then you also get speed ups. If you buy a seasonal pack for the special items, you also get speed ups and resources. So players who understand mechanics and buy packs that are meant for specific mechanics that they're trying to implement tend to end up having a stockpile of junk items. These junk items are resources, are speed ups and things like that. If you buy Geared Up every single day, you're going to have a boatload of resources and a boatload of speed ups while you're getting the materials that you need. If you're buying New World completely and utterly every single month, then you're going to get a good amount of leftover resources out of that. And this is where the gap between 279 and 399 was. 399 just has a stupendous amount of players who don't only understand the mechanics very well, but are also very, very well geared up and ready to rock and roll. Think about it this way. Every time you gathered, they gathered too, but at the same time, they also spent $400 or $180 on Geared Up today, and didn't only gather, but also picked up all those resources plus all those speed ups. Plus, don't forget that 60 of their alliance mates did the same thing, so there's 60 gold chests now, which are giving them a stupid amount of extra speed ups. And these guys are coming into the field with a bag the size of the Empire State Building. And for them, it's a war of attrition. They've been spending all this time to do this. Someone from 279 commented in my previous video that when Hulk ported in to the BBTH side, and I mention Hulk a lot because I do know his account at a decent level, and I know kind of how he spends in the game and what kinds of things he buys as someone who had conversations with him when he was in Kingdom 59 and picked up the gold chests along the way. Thank you for that. He said once Hulk ported in, he truly stood for his name. He was a true Hulk. And the way he did that is because he understands the game mechanics as well as so many more 399ers. I'm just using him as an example, that he is very well stacked and very savvy. And so he knows how to make every single one of his resources do as much damage as possible. And he has boatload of resources and speed ups along the way. When the 25th or 24th hour came in, I started hearing from 279 they're starting to lick their wounds a little bit. And the reason for that is they were delivering punches, but for every punch they were delivering, they were taking two. And while they had enough energy to keep delivering punches, they just couldn't keep taking the beating. For every punch they were delivering, 2 of them would come. And it got to the point where they just either ran out of speed ups, ran out of resources, ran out of troops, or ran out of energy altogether. It's a war of attrition. That's what this is. And truly, 375 and 399 came in much more stacked up. And that's the problem of facing a 2v2. 2v1 in that case. Now, 293 did everything they could to help, but even 293 were very limited to the flags that they could reach. And so the flags that they could reach burned a couple times, and even they managed to push back 1 or 2 flags of 375. But this side was straight up 1v1 and a war of attrition of some of the most stacked and understanding players in Rise of Kingdoms, with some of the best equipment in the game, with some of the best talent tree builds in the game. These guys literally spent hundreds of talent resets changing every single talent to every single different thing and testing that. And on top of that, a ton of resources, a ton of speed ups, a ton of gold chests, which means more speed ups. It's impossible. It is literally impossible, because at this stage, it truly becomes about who has the fatter credit card. It gets to that point. At this stage of Rise of Kingdoms, these 2 teams have mostly the commanders that they need. They have mostly the equipment that they need. They have mostly the understanding of game mechanics and where they drop the flags and what they do and how they do. They have mostly the manpower and drive to be there. But at that point, it's just who has the bigger stack that they can get rid of and who's willing to pay the stack. Not everybody's willing to pay the stack. More often than not, kingdoms that are fairly well stacked, but they go up against someone who's much more stacked, tend to give up early on because they feel like they could use that stack of theirs on another KVK where they could be more successful. In 399, there is no such thing. They went in with everything they had, and so did 279 to their credit. 279 went in with everything they had too, but the problem is that 399 just had more. It's just, that's where the line gets drawn. This KVK was one of the few KVKs I can truly say with 100% guarantee the only thing that won this is which side spent more. There are KVKs where you can say, oh, well, duh. I mean, since JWM spends so much, that's why they win all the time. Since Kingdom 93 used to spend so much, that's why they won all the time. Since Kingdom 196 spent so much, that's why they won all the time. What happens when you face a kingdom that spent a good amount just like you and learned a good amount just like you? At that point, it becomes just a war of attrition. And in the camp of 399, on top of having the commanders, the knowledge, the players, the drive, and the organization, they also had the deeper pockets. And by deeper pockets, I don't mean that they spent today at $2,000 and yesterday $2,000. I mean players who've been playing for a year, 2 years, and have been consistently spending a good level of money to the point where their stacks are so big there's absolutely nothing you can do to go up against them. All you can do is try to ruin their stacks a little bit, but the problem in Rise of Kingdoms is that KVKs have such a big breaks in between fights that it's truly impossible to milk someone down enough. This is a huge issue in Rise of Kingdoms. The issue is that the difference in KVKs is so massive that a big spender will be able to regain not only his troops, but also his stack of resources, speed ups, and whatever the heck not, and boosts and everything along the way at a much faster rate than and get to a point where they can fully stack up again for the next KVK. And essentially, you can never tire these players out. The only way is to get them to the point where they stop spending, and then they'll start tiring out. But a vast majority of them can do what these guys are doing right here, which is rally and swarm a flag. Why? Because it's causing massive amounts of pain. And it's putting massive amount of pressure on 279 to make a mistake and stick the wrong troops in this flag, which will cost them even further. And all that can be done because the troops who swarm those flags can allow themselves to do so. Now, it might seem to you like an obvious thing, right? I mean, if you spend more, you can definitely do more. If you spend more, you can definitely do more at a higher cost if you don't know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, like a lot of folks in both these kingdoms do, that $370, $85 pack will go a much longer way than $3,850 in someone's spendage who has no clue what they're doing. At this point, 279 found themselves between a hard place and a rock, because as you can see, they were fighting and they were putting down a lot of pressure. They were getting great trades. They were doing really, really good against 399. They were burning flags. They managed to push flags back. Like at some point, I watched as some of the people that I know bubbled in green territory and I guess went to sleep. And when they woke up, they were deep in red territory. It was unbelievable to see 279 give that pushback. But the problem was every time 399 was in full swing, it was just impossible because you're going up against reserves and reserves and reserves and reserves and reserves. Researches, of speed ups, of resources, and of everything along the way. Look at these. Like some of these reports, this is again another one of those UA reports, another nasty report that they had here. Some of the reports that the folks in 279 had were really tremendous. And we saw a lot of them last video, and we'll probably in the next video watch a few more. I think we're going to have one more video of this KVK because there's one last topic I want to go over in here, which is more about flagging and placement. But the reality here was that at the end of the day, the armies are just as good as much ammunition as you got. And 399 had a stupid amount more ammunition, which at the end of the day did win them their KVK. And that's the top tier KVKs. That's how they go. It's essentially a war of attrition. The way you know this is a war of attrition is because they went back and forth in flags in burning theirs, and then I put mine, and then you burned mine and built yours back. When you see alliances trading flags back and forth and replacing their own flags back and forth, that's how you know there's like an even playing field. In majority of cases, one alliance is bullying, one kingdom is bullying the other one nonstop, and the other one is just doing their best to hold on until they can't anymore. When you see a KVK like this one, where the two teams consistently traded blows, it was just a matter of I swung and hit you once in the face, but you hit me 1.5 times. And so at the end of the day, it's not that I don't have the punch to keep giving, but I cannot take more punches. You've for every one that I've landed, you've landed 1.5. And if we can only hold for 3 punches and whoever falls at the third one, I can hit you 2 times and then you'll hit me 3 times total and I'll lose. That's what happened here. 279 essentially exhausted the tank. They went as deep as they could and they were not gonna let it go and they were not gonna back down and they just continually went at it until the gas ran out. And it was truly, 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 truly tremendous to watch. It doesn't happen in every KVK. How many KVKs can you remember where teams traded flags back and forth at peak times? Very, very few. In majority of cases, one team is bullying the other team consistently, and the other team either holds on for dear life and eventually manages to maybe get a little push, or they just end up giving up. Very few times a team made a strategic backing. We saw that in the KVK where it was 415, I believe, against the 12 Kings, I think it's called. They're nasty kid. TKXI, I think. Or TXI, yeah, it's something like that. Those we watched them as they pushed Legend Ronnie's team 415 from owning Kingsland to getting completely pushed back. The way they did that is they didn't exhaust the gas tank. They waited for the right moment, and then they went out with everything. In here, all teams went out with everything early on, and the first one to run out of gas is essentially the one that is going to lose. It was crazy to see 279 hold against 2 kingdoms. It was truly, truly crazy. What was even crazier than that is the fact that they burned flags. That was actually unbelievable. It was amazing to watch 293 hold 273 back while also trying to push 375. 293 is one of those probably unknown kingdoms that you should keep an eye on because, I mean, the kind of relentless fighting they did here, it wouldn't surprise me if they turned into an A kingdom at some point and even be a huge Imperium kingdom one day, because the attitude in their game style and gameplay and fighting is what an A team is all about. So massive shout out to 293 in purple. They actually did like stupendous amount of work. And also, really, to all the teams, as you continually see the map growing and evolving, you can see that really Orange and Baby Blue had nothing to do with any of this, and that indeed Green managed to push back their corner, and at some point, like, they didn't have that corner at all. It was just a matter of who had more gas in the tank, and at the end of the day, being a player who's been in the game for long enough that you've made purchases throughout time and didn't utilize all the items, left 399 with a group of massive amounts of players that have bags out the wazoo, and there was nothing that 279 could do about it. That is the one thing I dislike about Rise of Kingdoms, and it is that the difference in the fighting, like the time between fighting, is so substantially big that any big spender can recover their bag plus their troops plus everything in that gap. You cannot punish a big spender consistently through playing smarter than them, because the break time between the times that you meet them is so large that the time they have to spend overcomes the amount of smartness you put into wrecking them. And that is why Rise of Kingdoms has such a big problem. It's just like that. If you can be the smartest player on earth, but when there is over 50, 60 days in which you can literally spend $120,000 in the process and build a massive bag, and people do that, it's impossible to take away in 24 hours worth of training $120,000 worth of potential purchases. Even if you you max buy one bundle a day, you're still going to be very capable in 60 plus days to come back and fight like you fought last time, like nothing ever happened. All that happened is your kill count went up and your death count went up. That's it. That's something that Rise of Kingdoms are going to have to figure out how to address, because until they do, playing smart will not beat spending more. When they make it so that the window of spendage is too small, and you cannot spend as much as you lose by playing loosely and wildly, that's when the smart players are going to really punish the big spenders. At this stage, no big spender is no big spender is being punished, except for maybe these guys that are taking double rallies out the wazoo. And 279 did a lot of punishing to 399. But unfortunately, I can already tell you that some of the people got to the point where they've spent enough to rebuild their account, and they're ready to rock and roll again, which is kind of a shame, because 279 did an amazing job at pushing them back. But truly, there are no scars left, and that's a huge problem in Rise of Kingdoms. That is a very, very big problem. With that being said, we talked on this video a lot more about the things that are around this KVK, as I wanted to give you some footage of the main action going on. In the next video, we'll talk more about exactly what's going on the map, about the rallies, about the flag selections, about why folks went the way they went, how the flagging worked out in the favor of who, and also, of course, talk about what you see actually on the screen, the fights, the strategy behind things, why flags were swarmed in certain scenarios, why rallies were swarmed in certain scenarios, and all that good stuff. But I did want to give you this final thought about how spending in Rise of Kingdoms can make you a very big player, but it won't make you a strong player. But a player who also spends and also understands the game mechanics is not only a big player, they're also a strong player, and they're nasty players. And they can just wreck you. And there's nothing you can do. I'm Gekko. I'm out of here. I appreciate it. If you dropped a like on this video. Of course, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all in the next part, which is going to be sometime next week. Tomorrow, the jumper update video is coming out. And Saturday, we'll be streaming some Among Us as well as some Rise of Kingdoms. Saturday, at server reset, KVK apparently begins in K2. We'll cover that as well. See what changes in pre-KVK. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you all sooner rather than later. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a good one. Peace.